This conference will now be recorded.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today our topic is differential diagnosis of swellings in neck. So which will be helpful to your practicals. So in previous, I think in last month class, we have discussed about the different triangles of the neck and what are the clinical importance. Excuse me. ఇది కదా సెంటర్ వైపు ఓకే. So coming to the differential diagnosis for neck masses. So most common first one is the congenital. Next is the infectious. It can be a traumatic or neoplastic and vascular or idiopathic or iatrogenic. Toxic or due to metabolic causes. So what are the differential diagnosis for a midline neck swellings? So what is Ludwig's angina? So later on we will discuss about each and every swelling. So Ludwig's angina, submental lymph nodes, sublingual dermoid, thyroglossal cyst, subhyoid bursa, thyroid isthmus swelling, also midline swelling. So prelaryngeal and pretracheal lymph nodes, suprasternal lymph nodes, and midline dermoids and all lipomas. So all these are the differential diagnosis of a midline neck swellings. So what are the differential for lateral swellings? In so later we are getting in what are the swellings we will get in the submandibular triangle. This is the submandibular salivary gland enlargement itself or submandibular lymph node enlargement. Another one is the plunging granula. Second one and fourth one is the jaw tumors. So coming to the differential diagnosis of swelling in a carotid triangle. So it can be a carotid aneurysm, that is a dilatation of a carotid artery itself, and carotid body tumor, otherwise called as potato tumor, and branchial cyst and branchiogenic carcinoma, thyroid lateral lobe swellings, sternomastoid swelling or tumor called as torticollis, and other lymph nodal mass in that region. So posterior triangle, again same, most common is the tuberculous cervical lymphadenitis. So lymph node mass, another one cystic hygroma, but it can be pharyngeal pouch, subclavian aneurysms, first cervical rib, lateral aberrant thyroid. So where we will get lateral aberrant thyroid, we will get in the papillary carcinoma of thyroid. So sometimes the patients present with only this lateral aberrant thyroid. with the lymph node mets. So what is lateral aberrant thyroid? So in case of papillary carcinoma, this is the most common thyroid carcinoma in young individuals with exposure of radiation, that is ionizing radiation. So sometimes what will happen, they present only with the lateral neck swellings. So what is that lateral neck swelling? That is not the thyroid tissue. These are the cervical lymph nodes. So that is called as lateral aberrant thyroid. So again we will classify the midline neck swellings into cystic swellings and the solid swellings. So what are the cystic swellings? So what is the classic features of cystic swelling? Cystic in consistency, then some of the swellings will may exhibit the transillumination and fluctuation positive. So sublingual dermoid, submental dermoid, thyroglossal cyst, subhyoid bursal cyst, thyroid isthmic systemic nodule, cold abscess in the space of burns, and laryngocele. So what are the solid swellings we will? Solid swellings are the lymphoglandular swellings, thyroid isthmic nodule, and bony growth from the sternum. So what is the rule of 80? So it holds good in neck swellings. So 80% of non-thyroid neck masses are neoplastic, and 80% of neoplastic neck masses are in most commonly in males, and 80% of neoplastic neck masses are malignant. 80% of malignant neck masses are metastatic, and 80% of metastatic neck masses are from the primary sites above the clavicle. These are the rules of 80, which holds good in the neck swellings. So what is the rule of 7 in the neck? So if at all, because depending upon the average duration of the patient's symptoms, so if patient presents with the symptoms for the last 7 days, then we can come to a conclusion or diagnosis that it can be a inflammatory swellings. If a duration is 7 months, then definitely it is a neoplasm or a tumor, malignant tumor. If at a duration 7 years or more than 7, then it is a congenital defect. So what are the general considerations we will see in the swellings? So first is the patient age. So in pediatrics, that is in 0 to 15 years, 90% are there benign swellings. In young adults, that is 16 to 40 years, also same 90% benign. So whereas late adult, that is more than 40 years, we should exclude the rule of 80s. So depending upon the location, so congenital masses, they will be consistent in location, whereas the metastatic masses, they can give a key to a primary lesion. So primary will be there in other areas. So what are the rules of thumbs in neck swellings? So neck nodes are very common in children when compared to the adults. Small non-enlarging mobile nodes are common in young. An adult with a lump in the lateral neck has cancer until proved otherwise. So any persistent or enlarging neck mass in adults warrants the further investigation. So we have to investigate thoroughly or to exclude the metastasis. So submental lymphadenitis. So submental lymph nodes drain the superficial tissue below the chin, central part of the lower lip, adjoining gums, and anterior part of the floor of the mouth, and important is the tip of the tongue. So infection in these areas leads to the submental lymphadenitis, that is inflammation of the submental nodes. So submental node comes under the group 1A. So coming to the submandibular swelling. So superficial part lies in submandibular triangle, which is superficial to the, already in last class we have discussed about all these things. So it should be because mylohyoid, the muscle which divides the submandibular gland into two parts, superficial and the deep. So between the two bellies, so superficial to the mylohyoid and the hyoglossus muscle between the two bellies of the digastric muscle. So deep part is in the floor of the mouth and deep to the mylohyoid. So rule of two in submandibular salivary gland. So two parts is divided by the mylohyoid muscle. Two conditions affect, that is the tumor and the stone, because the submandibular gland secretions are the more viscous when compared to the parotid gland. So there is more chances of stone formation compared to the parotid gland. So two superficial nerves, that is the cervical and the mandibular branch of the facial nerves, and two deep nerves, lingual and the hypoglossal nerves. So incision, so always incision for excision or exploration of the submandibular swellings will be 2 to 4 centimeters below the mandible. So why is it 2 to 4 centimeters? Because means here the greater auricular nerve will pass along the mandible. So you should not injure the greater auricular nerve. So you should locate the facial artery at two places. So this is the diagram, this patient with a submandibular swelling. So next one is the branchial cyst. So again, if you won't treat the branchial cyst or incomplete excision of the branchial cyst can lead to a infection and formation of a fistula. So it arises from the remnants of the second brachial cleft. So persistent second cleft is called as cervical sinus, which eventually gets sequestrated to form the brachial cyst. So it is a congenital swelling, but usually presents in second or third decade of life. It is located beneath the anterior border of the upper one-third of sternocleidomastoid muscle. So it is smooth, soft, or sometimes it may tensely cystic also, and fluctuant, occasionally transilluminate. So it contains the fat globules and the cholesterol crystals. So it is neither compressible nor reducible. So this is the diagram showing the patients with the brachial cyst. So see the location, there is a sternocleidomastoid muscle. So it is a brachial cyst. So another condition is the cystic hygroma. It is due to the sequestration of a portion of the jugular lymph sac from the lymphatic system. So most commonly present in the posterior triangle of the nerve, that is comprises of 75%. Other sites being the axilla, cheek, tongue. And tongue, the condition called as lymphangitic macroglossia. So it can also present in groin and the mediastinum. So these cystic hygromas will have the mosaic pattern with larger cystic areas near the surface and smaller cysts near the, as we go deeper we will get only the smaller cystic spaces. So each cyst contains the clear lymph because these are formed by the from the sequestration of the jugular lymph sacs. So it is a lymph sac. So it contains only the clear lymph which does not coagulate. So cystic hygroma can present in a very, that is in childhood or in the common age of presentation, and others in a adult life. So here first diagram is a child with a fused cystic hygroma, whereas second picture showing an adult female presenting with the cystic hygroma. So coming to the carotid body tumor. So it's also known as potato tumor or chemodectoma or non-chromaffin paraganglioma. So it arises from the carotid body, which is a chemoreceptor. So it usually occurs in people living at high altitudes exposed to the chronic hypoxia. So it is located at the level of the hyoid bone in the carotid triangle. It is vertically placed, round, firm potato-like swelling. It is usually unilateral, smooth, firm, and it is pulsatile. So the swelling moves in side-to-side direction but not vertically. So there is a horizontal movement of this mobility of the swelling. So compression over the carotids may lead to transient ischemic attacks. So patient may present with the transient ischemic attacks which can be recovered within 24 hours. So it can extend into cranial cavity as a dumbbell tumor. So it can also have a cranial cavity extension also. Then it looks like dumbbell shape. So it is called as dumbbell tumor. What is Lair's sign? It is the widening and the splaying of the carotid artery with tumor blush on an angiogram. It is an angiogrammic sign, Lair's sign. So here the diagram showing the site of a carotid body tumor. So it should be level with the hyoid cartilage and the external artery may cross the surface of the tumor. So here are the two examples showing the carotid body tumor. So the visible mass is lower than that of a brachial cyst, first one, but indistinguishable on inspection from an enlarged cervical lymph node, first diagram. So most carotid body tumors are initially mistaken for a enlarged lymph nodes. So here it is a very large, firm and bossulated carotid body tumor. So it is a classical example of a potato tumor. So vascular causes for the neck masses. So these include the vascular aneurysms, dissections or malformations. So carotid blowout can be caused post-operative complications and aggressive infections and invasive tumors or radiation therapy. So vascular masses tend to develop rapidly over minutes to hours and may be pulsatile. So classical feature of the vascular masses are there are pulsatile. So coming to the sternomastoidoma. So any benign swellings in the neck, the treatment is the excision, complete excision of the swelling along with the cyst wall. So the term sternomastoid tumor, it is a misnomer as it is not a tumor but rather it is a common birth injury resulting in a hematoma which is organizing itself to form the sternomastoid tumor or otherwise called as torticollis. So the swelling is smooth, hard, non-tender and adherent to the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So it causes the chin point to opposite side and head tilt to the same side. So long-standing cases can cause the compensatory squint. So because of that position. So what is chin point? Chin to the opposite side and the head tilt to the same side. So their long-standing cases they develop the squint and this cervical scoliosis. So sternomastoid tumor or torticollis, it is an area of the edema and necrosis in the lower third of the most common site is the lower third of the sternomastoid muscle. So here in first one diagram, baby torticollis is caused by ischemia of the sternomastoid muscle during the childbirth. So these swelling will have a localized swollen segment of sternomastoid muscle with a slight torticollis in an older child caused by ischemia and fibrosis of the muscle after birth. So it is a typical mastoid tumor. So what will be the treatment? So treatment mostly will be the sometimes physiotherapy. So if physiotherapy won't suppress the condition, then we will move on to the removal of the tumor and the suturing of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So Ludwig's angina. So what is Ludwig's angina? It is a brawny submandibular swelling which is inflammatory swelling of the floor of the mouth. So cervical and intraoral it will have the, so patients may present with the putrid halitosis, that is a bad breathing. And virulent streptococci and anaerobic. So virulent streptococci plus anaerobic infections are the main cause for the Ludwig's angina. So tongue displacement will be, there will be a upward displacement of the tongue, so which may lead to dysphagia and airway obstruction. So you should control the infection. So ultimately it develops into a formation of a cellulitis. So throughout the floor of the mouth. So you should not let the cellulitis go into the neck below the fascia to reach the larynx, and which ultimately land up in a glottic edema. So first of all you should control the infection. So first one is the control infection. Then so how will you control the infection? Through broad spectrum intravenous antibiotics and combined with the metronidazole as to cover up the anaerobic infections. So how will you brain the Ludwig's angina? So it will curved submental incision, drain the submental triangle and cut the mylohyoid. So if at all the obstruction is so severe, then you should go for tracheostomy whenever it is necessary. So if at all patient presents with a glottic edema, this is the final stage, then you should definitely go for the tracheostomy. So what is the plunging granula? It is simple, it is unilateral oral cavity cystic swelling. So what is plunging granula? Which pierces the mylohyoid to present as a paramedian or the lateral neck mass. So you should first, if you aspirate the cyst, it will be high rich in protein and mildness levels. So what is the choice of investigations means CT scan and the MRI. So to know the intraoral connection also. So treatment is intraoral excision to include the sublingual gland origin incision also. So if at all it is a simple granula, we will simply excise the cyst. If at all there is a plunging granula, plunging means again it will have intraoral connection also. So intraorally we will have a one swelling. So we have to, through orally we have to expose the intraoral. So we should do the intraoral excision also. So this is the typical example of a plunging granula. So what is the laryngocele? So congenitally from an enlarged laryngeal saccule. So it is classified as a internal, external or both. So what is the internal laryngocele? It is confined to the larynx usually involves the false chords and airy epiglottic folds. So the patients may present with the hoarseness and the respiratory distress along with the neck mass. So what is the other entity? External and the combined laryngoscles. So these swellings are the soft compressible lateral neck mass which distance with increases in intralaryngeal pressures. So through the thyrohyoid membrane at the entrance of the superior laryngeal nerve. So these are the resonant swellings. So trumpet blow. So what are the most? So who are the effectors for these type of external and combined laryngoscles, especially trumpet blowers and glass blowers and the chronic cough patients. So what is the choice of investigation? It is the CT scan. So this is the classical example of a laryngoscele. So what is thyroglossal cyst? So it can congenital thyroglossal tract from the foramen cecum. So what are the common sites of thyroglossal cyst? It can be subhyoid thyroid cartilage or abohyoid bone. Midline mass moves with both the tongue protrusion and the swallowing or deglutition. So which is attached to the foramen cecum. So what is the most common complication of this thyroglossal tract? Infection which leads to fistula formation. So what will be the management? How will you manage? So cyst trunk operation. What is cyst trunk operation? This is the complete excision of the tract from cecum foramen along with the hyoid bone excision and the cyst. It is a cyst trunk operation. So where we will get this name cyst trunk operation other than this thyroglossal cyst? Anyone? Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
So cyst trunk operation, one is the thyroglossal cyst excision. Other one is the lymphedema. If you have a severe lymphedema, so that surgical procedure also called as cyst trunk operation. Another one is the parotid. So parotid gland excision, that is also called as cyst trunk operation. So it can be suprahyoid or subhyoid pretracheal, most common sites of thyroglossal cyst. So these two are the examples for it. This one is the subhyoid, which is the most common. Other rare variety is the pretracheal. So subhyoid bursal cyst. So distension of the subhyoid bursa due to accumulation of the turbid fluid. So subhyoid bursa lies between the body of hyoid bone and the thyrohyoid membranes. So sudden onset with features of mild inflammation will be there. So transversely elongated or sausage-shaped midline cystic swelling located below the hyoid bone moving with the deglutition. So no movement and protrusion of the tongue. So treatment is a complete excision. Then submental dermoid, so which occurs just beneath the chin in the midline and usually lies in or superficial to the raphe, which unites the two mylohyoid muscles. So which contains the white cheesy material, no movements with deglutition or protrusion of the tongue, and treatment is the excision. So another important neck swelling is the cervical lymphadenopathy. So it can be due to, it can be due to inflammation called as reactive hyperplasia or infective origin or viral infections due to most common infectious mononucleosis or retroviral virus. So next in bacteria. So bacterial infections like Streptococcus, Staphylococcus, Actinomycosis, and tuberculosis. Then one is the protozoa. One of the most common protozoan causing the cervical lymphadenopathy is the toxoplasmosis. And other rare condition are the neoplasms, this is lymphomas or secondary mets or occult mets. So cervical lymphadenitis. So infection can from oral cavity or nasal or pharyngeal, larynx or ear, scalp and face. So all these infections in these sites will lead to the cervical lymphadenitis. So acute lymphadenitis. So acute may present with tender, enlarged, high-grade fever associated with the malaise, and tonsillitis or dental infection or any abscess can lead to the acute lymphadenitis. So what is the treatment of, what is the management is antibiotics. If doesn't subsides, then you can go for drainage in cases of abscess. So all these are the sites of infections which leads to the cervical lymphadenitis. So what is chronic lymphadenitis? So chronic painless cervical lymphadenitis is the most common cause is a tuberculosis or carcinomas, that is metastatic, that is neoplasms, or lymphomas or retroviral infections. So first of all, chronic lymphadenitis, we should exclude the primary lesion in a head and neck. So then next choice of investigation is the fine needle aspiration cytology, that is the FNAC. So whenever patient presents to you with a cervical, that is neck masses, first you have to exclude the conditions according to the age. So for example, if young individuals are in low children age group, most common is the tuberculosis. Next one is the any oral, any caries, dental caries are there. Even skin pediculosis. Pediculosis also can lead to the cervical lymphadenitis. So we should exclude all these things. Then you have to give them antibiotics. So if it doesn't subsides with the antibiotic course, then definitely you should go for FNAC. So in that FNAC, if you get that it is due to tuberculosis, then you should start the anti-TB, anti-tuberculosis treatment, ATT. So immediately you should start the ATT. Otherwise, if it is any reactive lymphadenitis, then with simple antibiotic course, the swellings will subside. If at all diagnosis is not if diagnosis is not confirmed by FNAC, then we can go for excision and the open excision biopsy. So by excision, the excision of that whole lymph node we will send to the histopathological examination. So that is the steps for how you approach a cervical lymphadenitis case. So tubercular lymphadenitis, children and young adults. So what is the characteristic feature of tubercular lymphadenitis is the matting. So which involves the deep cervical nodes. That is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Whereas bovine and human tuberculosis will also involve the tonsil. So primary focus can be in a lungs. So another characteristic feature is the matting lymph nodes and caseinated lymph nodes. So these caseinated lymph nodes can lead to a cold abscess, and this one leads to a Collet-Stud abscess. So which will have the cheesy materials. So all these are the characteristic features of a tubercular lymphadenitis. So you should start ATT for 6 to 8 months. So what are the stages of tubercular lymphadenitis? So stage 1 is the simple inflammation of the lymph nodes. Then stage 2 is the matting of the lymph nodes. Then stage 3 is the formation of the cold abscess. Stage 4 is the collar stud abscess. Stage 5 is the ultimately sinus formation. So wherever you see the in neck region, wherever if you see the sinus formation, then you should come to a diagnosis that it could be the tuberculosis. It could be the tuberculosis of the cervical lymph nodes, because most, so in tuberculosis sinus formation is the more common. So first there will be enlarged discrete glands, then they all together get fused, that is the matted glands, then secondary infection then causes the abscess formation. Then this abscess formation will rupture and burst through the deep fascia and becomes the collar stud in shape. So all these are the stages of the tuberculous lymphadenitis. So next, another important neck swelling is the lymphoma. So actually lymphoma, it is a big topic. So here only I am telling only briefly. So more common in children and young adults. Up to 80% of children with Hodgkin's will have a neck masses. So what are the signs and symptoms? So lateral neck mass, these are the discrete characteristic rubbery and non-tender is the characteristic of the lymphomas, the Hodgkin's lymphoma. Then there will be fever, hepatosplenomegaly and diffuse adenopathy. So as I said earlier, FNAC is the first line diagnostic test. So if suggestive of lymphoma, then we'll go for the open biopsy. And also we have to do the further workup, that is a CT scan of the chest, abdomen, because it can involve any lymph nodes, not only the cervical. So CT scans of the chest to rule a mediastinal lymph node involvement, abdomen, head and neck, bone. So ultimately, bone marrow biopsy also can be done to confirm the diagnosis. So another one is the goiter. Goiter is the diffuse enlargement of the thyroid. So solitary nodule or nodular goiter or diffuse hyperplastic goiter. All these present as a midline swellings. So investigation into the euthyroid patient form nodule, nodular or smooth thyroid. So any pain or sudden increase in size of the swelling is a, what is the reason is bleeding into the capsule. So in severe cases, that is total butterfly shaped multinodular goiter, long standing goiter may present with the tracheal obstruction, that is the airway obstruction. So all these are the clinical methods how you should examine the thyroid case, or how to palpate the thyroid gland. So these are all the examples of the thyroid glands. So secondaries. So secondaries and primary head and neck. So primary carcinoma will be in head and neck. So now what are the secondaries? So nasopharynx, tonsil, tongue, piriform fossa, supraglottic larynx. So what is the secondary neck? Secondary neck. So you should uh, identify the primary carcinoma where it is. So for all the most common areas of primary should be the nasopharynx, tonsil, tongue, piriform fossa, supraglottic, larynx. So first we will do the FNAC of the involved lymph node. Then we will go for the CT scan and MRI. So what is the management? So en bloc lymph node dissection should be done. So there are various types of neck dissection. So classic neck dissection, modified neck dissection, and selective neck dissection. So in another class we will briefly explain all these types of neck dissections. So because your UG level neck dissections are not uh, that much important. So it is a PG level of discussion. So radiotherapy and chemotherapy. So metastatic location according to the various primary lesions. If at all primary site is in oral cavity, then first involved lymph nodes are the 1, 2, 3. Whereas larynx and pharynx it is 2, 3 and 4. Thyroid is the 4, that is 4, and tracheoesophageal groove and superior mediastinal lymph nodes. Whereas the parotid it is 2, 3, preauricular, peri and intraparotid and upper jugular chain. If at all it is submandibular and sublingual glands, then it is 1, 2 and 3. So these are the diagram of the various triangles and lymph nodes and normal lymph nodes in the neck. So this is the diagram showing the sites of the primary neoplasm where with the secondaries of the cervical lymph nodes. So here there is the scalp, sometimes via the preauricular nodes at the parotid gland, or from the upper face and the ear. So this second lymph nodes is at the maxillary, antrum and other air sinuses. 3 is the tongue, buccal mucosa and the floor of the mouth and mandible. So 4 is the lips. 5 are the tonsils, base of the tongue and the oropharynx. The 6th site is the submandibular gland, skin of neck. 7th is the larynx and the laryngopharynx. 8th is the thyroid and upper esophagus. Whereas the 9th is the upper limb and both sides of the chest wall. 10th is the breast. 11 is the lungs, stomach and all the viscera. All these are the rare causes. So this is a diagram. This is a patient with hard enlarged lymph glands in the neck. The primary lesion was the insignificant mole above his right eyebrow. That is the skin cancer. So this is a patient with primary skin cancer with the secondary nodes. Thank you.